Okay, here we go. We're going to try to do a demonstration of the 1-inch punch. My claim here is not to be particularly good at this technique or anything like that. I just wanted to make a video pointing out that it's easier than most people think and what it's actually useful for. It became famous because Bruce Lee did a demo with it, and this won't be exactly the same technique he used, but overall, the idea behind the 1-inch punch is learning to generate power a different way than what we naturally think of. And it applies to many different techniques. And everybody can do it, and believe it or not, it's possibly my most used martial arts technique, but not in a martial arts setting. You don't defend yourself with a 1-inch punch in most scenarios. I use it to close doors. I live in a somewhat unlevel house, and so there's a lot of sticky door jams, that kind of thing, and opening and closing doors like that, closing a car door that didn't shut all the way. But the idea is to get used to a type of movement that that allows you to generate power somehow different than swinging your limbs, basically. All right, so I needed somebody a bit bigger than me, and here, a little bit more. Rather than doing this as a punch from here like most people do, I'm actually going to do it with no inches as a flat push, partially because it's more comfortable on him, partially because it isolates the principle I'm talking about, partially because it's easier for me and it'll be easier for you. So if I'm punching from here, it's also taking into account my ability to make a fist, right? But one of the defining features of making this look cool or work is that your training partner is standing flat-footed, and that you won't be. You'll be in some form of stance here, that we're not both flat-footed, but that I get down in some kind of stance, and that the movement of my hips and my shoulders, my rotation, and my shift in body weight is what pushes him, right? And so that should have been relatively obvious, but my hips snap, right? My shoulders lean into it, I basically hinge forward on my body. And the same thing happens when I punch here, is that, right, I go from here and rotate my body into it. It's less comfortable for him because I hit with my knuckles. It's less comfortable for me because I'm introducing another smaller joint in there. I can do it, but I don't want to, and I don't recommend that you do. If you want to practice that, I recommend not practicing it on camera, because an easy way to hurt yourself is to throw your body weight at your opponent and then turn your fist like this and fold your wrist over or something. Seen that too many times, don't do it. And this way you're not hitting it. Just set flat, right? Get a nice deep stance, and now instead of trying, see, if I do this, he doesn't go very far. I did a big motion, but he took very little energy because he was out at the end of it. If I stretch out as far as I can, right? If I stay back here, he doesn't go anywhere. If I step closer and roll my body forward and then don't let this arm spring like that, he stumbles backwards because my entire weight shifted forward, right? But the interesting thing about that is this. So now you get down in a lunge like that. If he braces himself well and I stand flat-footed and I do the same input, I go backwards, right? And what we're trying to learn here can be used by itself in a fight in some scenarios. But the idea that this is a good fighting technique is silly, right? If he puts his hand on me in a normal fight, right, that's going to be bad. Everybody trains some version of that arm lock. And yes, I'm half committed on that. I'm not trying to teach you some particular technique here. I'm trying to go, these principles are worth doing so that if we are trying to fight, rather than throwing my arm out, I know to throw my body out there and combine it with swinging my arm. Right? So that rather than reaching out and trying to hit him, I'm shifting into him when I hit him, and then whatever strike I'm throwing, is my arm pushing on the end of a strike that had my body weight involved in it, right? Because if I push on his shoulder, nothing happens. If I push up on his head, nothing happens. If I hook and I step over there, he comes with me, right? And yeah, he can maybe resist that, but he offered me the same amount of resistance each time there, right? If I grab his shoulder and I step, I'm much more likely to get him to come with me because he's wearing my body weight. Not a great move in and of itself, but if I actually want to break his balance and my plan is this, to reach out and pull on him, that's a bad plan. But as soon as I step with my body and my hands, it works well. And an easy way to isolate that by itself and test it is this. And now my job is to push him without moving my feet and without pulling back my hand. And all it is that shift of body weight. And then the idea of how to apply it is on an individual basis. It depends what else you know how to do. And nothing that I showed there was a specific go use this technique. It's just, this is a pretty low bar. It's a pretty easy test to give yourself. You know, you see a lot of people at higher levels, or you picture it as a higher level technique. It's not a particularly high level technique. You know, if you want to dent car doors and break boards like that, maybe. But if you just want an easy way to test yourself, close the door all the way, except don't let it quite latch closed. And then try and hit it with a 1-inch punch. And then open it a little bit and try and hit it with either that push or even the punch in the case of an open door, because you're unlikely to break your hand on the door. Now, that being said, don't try that if you don't know how to make a fist. Don't try any of this if you don't have some way to get some oversight from somebody that's not some random hillbilly on YouTube, right? I live in the middle of the woods in Tennessee, and I'm posting YouTube videos. There's no reason you should listen to my advice in an actual fight. It's just an easy test that I use to close doors and that kind of thing, that I'm trying to get some information out there, because I think there's this weird mystique that somehow I'm firing chi at him, and that's not what's happening. All I'm doing is taking the fact that I weigh 190 pounds, and instead of standing it over here, I'm standing it right here, behind him, right? I'm making a stiff 190 pounds, and moving it over, and because he's not braced in that direction, he can't just carry that 190 pounds. But the thing is, if I'm only 100 pounds, it still works just fine. Because if he's not braced in that direction, he can't carry 100 pounds dynamically loaded either. It's being pushed with my legs, it's being pushed by rotating my hips, and that's a good way to test your ability to incorporate your body weight into a technique out at the end of your arm. And then from there, you have to be able to, you know, do other training to throw that in with something where you're moving, right? Where you're throwing a punch and you're still throwing your body weight into it, you're still rotating properly. But that's what the 1-inch punch was for. It was for developing that ability to take your body weight, take the rotation of your hips, things like that, and translate it out into force at the end of your arm. So anyway, I hope you found that helpful, and if so, please like and share it around, subscribe if you haven't already, and we will see you in another video. Thank you.